What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Championship Series Cup, running one of the most versatile Pokemon in this meta that beats the likes of Oranguru, Gyarados, Dugong, Altaria, amongst many others, and that Pokemon is Galarian Rapidash. Even in its bad matchups, the threat of a Wild Charge, or potentially something like a High Horsepower, or a Mega Horn, or even a Play Rough can grab shields. Rapidash acts as a sort of pseudo-electric type Pokemon, as the safe swap, with Alolan Raichu as the closer. Now in the lead, I needed coverage for Ghost-type Pokemon, so I would have ran Hisuian Zoroark, but for whatever reason, for the first few days of this meta, it was banned, so instead, I'm running Dodrio. Initially, I'm running Trailblaze, but I don't think I ever threw a single Trailblaze in any of these battles. I think Brave Bird is just way better, it gives it more nuke potential, so eventually I did swap it out. You could also argue the same thing for the Raichu. I don't think Trailblaze is that great in this meta, because Wild Charge is just such a better nuke move. However, it does have a lot of different charge moves, and I didn't want to use a bunch of TMs and then not even end up with Wild Charge anyway, so I am just running Trailblaze. But anyways, with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. What do you think is the best Corebreaker for the Championship Series Cup? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so go into the first battle, leading Dodrio into Bronzong. Now, this is definitely where Hisuian Zoroark would be way better for me, of course. We get completely walled by this Pokemon, but Zoroark would actually be able to hit for super effective damage, and it would be quite a positive matchup. But anyways, we're going to play this out anyways. Can't afford to swap out, as Rapidash doesn't have the best time up against a Steel-type Pokemon actually running Steel-type Fast Move pressure. But now we're going to come in with the Raichu resisting the Fast Move damage. They've got a lot of energy, so I'm going to shield, and the opponent full sends a payback. That's now going to allow me to overfarm just a little bit, fire off a Trailblaze. And Trailblaze actually kind of useful in this matchup because it's resisted, but it still gets the KO anyways. Now that I'm boosted, even though Psyshock not got the same nuke potential as a Wild Charge, it is going to do a lot of damage, so we do end up grabbing a shield. At this point, this is kind of tricky for me. Of course, they do have access to Shadow Ball, which I'm not too worried about on my Raichu, as an Avalanche will probably KO from this range, but of course, it's going to hit for super effective damage up against the Rapidash. But the opponent gonna throw straight away here. Avalanche gets the KO. Now, we can easily outpace them. The opponent tries to catch a charge move there, but they swap into their final Pokemon, a Gyarados. Gyarados, of course, Wild Charge, double super effective, easily gets the one shot there. And of course, we've already got a second Wild Charge loaded. It takes out Glalie from that range, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent there into the next battle. We see Alolan Raichu in the lead, so we're going to swap into our Rapidash, and we can outpace them to that first charge move, and we will fire off a Body Slam before they do throw. Body Slam is going to be shielded by the Alolan Raichu. At this point, I'm also going to shield, as the opponent is going to go ahead and bait with a Psyshock, but then they swap into Shadow Gyarados. I do not understand that play at all. Wild Charge gets the one shot. The opponent's going to swap back into Raichu. They've probably got a double flying backline, maybe even double Dragon Breath, so they're in an awkward situation, but now we can come in with the Raichu, and I'm definitely just going to shield. They go for Psyshock there, but we can go for a full farm down, and their final Pokemon, no, never mind, they actually had Oranguru, but of course Rapidash going to resist the confusion damage there, so still a good matchup for the Rapidash, and here we can go for back-to-back Trailblazers. First one grabs a final shield, second one is boosted. It still doesn't deal that much damage, but that's okay. The opponent fires off the Brutal Swing. We actually tanked that, so I can swap into the Dodrio. The opponent is trying to make this work here, but unfortunately for them, we can tank the Brutal Swing. I'm going straight for Drill Peck, and of course, Drill Peck from this range takes out Oranguru, so the opponent just concedes the match. So, GG's to opponent there into the next battle. Going to see Dugong in the lead. So, of course, not a great lead matchup for me. Going to be safe swapping into my Rapidash. And we're actually going to go straight for a Wild Charge here. It's very unusual to go straight for the move that can debuff yourself. So, the opponent does no shield. They then don't even bother throwing an Icy Wind or anything. So, now they come in with a Oranguru. I'm going to be 4 stages debuffed, but we can still deal big damage. And we can fire off a Body Slam as well. I tried to throw on CMP here. The opponent does just commit to a full Confusion farm down, but we grab that shield anyways. At this point, we're going to come in with the Dodrio. I'm happy to sponge the damage from 2 Brutal Swings here, and then I assume the opponent probably going to swap straight away back into Dugong, looking to snipe, so I'm going to swap straight away into my Raichu, and unfortunately, I will still have to shield. They likely go for an Icy Wind bait, but that actually gives me slightly more farm there. We come out with a Trailblaze or a Psyshock already loaded, and now they come in with their final Pokemon, a Turtonator. So, of course, that debuff doesn't really help me too much here, because now, unfortunately, 2 Psyshocks Shocks with the Volt Switch damage won't quite be enough damage to KO. However, the opponent is getting incredibly low. So this fight, I'm definitely just going to shield this. The opponent fires off the Brutal Swing. They swap back into Oranguru just to be fully farmed down there. And now we are very close to back-to-back Psyshocks. Psyshock is going to be shielded there. I swap out, I snipe with the Dodrio, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into next battle. You can see Oranguru in the lead. So here, we are going to stay in initially, swap out after one peck, and then swap into our Rapidash. Rapidash is sub-fairy, so we only take neutral damage from the Brutal Swings. Still does decent damage there. Rapidash is by no means any tank Pokemon, but we can go for Wild Charge. Wild Charge does huge damage there. And at this point, I'm actually going to let the Rapidash go down. I believe I've put them into range where 3 Volt Switches will get the KO, so I'm hoping that is going to be the case. So we come in with the Raichu, but they actually swap straight away into a Shadow Dragon Breath Charizard. So here, I'm just going to shield this. Even if they bait, I should be able to go for a full farm down anyways, and we do get that farm down. The opponent's going to come in with a Goodra. So now I'm going to fire off the Psyshock. Psyshock is going to be shielded by the opponent, but we can fire off a second Psyshock immediately. Psyshock number 2 does decent damage there. Unfortunately, not as much as I was hoping for. And so we come in with the Dodrio. I'm going to shield, and the opponent is going to go ahead and bait with an Alcatel. I'm now going to throw this immediately here as I want to get off this damage. Don't want to allow the opponent to try and make a catch onto Oranguru. And as well, the opponent now has the energy for a Thunder Punch, which gets the KO. Now here I make a huge mistake. I throw the charge move here, but I should have gone for Trailblaze. Trailblaze would boost up my attack stat, and you can see Volt Switch leaves them on 1 HP and a Dream. So perfect play on the opponent's end there. But if I boosted up my attack stat there, even if they do make that catch, I still get the win. So GG's to that trainer. Very well played. But into next battle, we're going to see an Altaria in the lead. So I'm going to swap out straight away into my hard answer here in Rapidash, because I can just farm up a ton of energy, and then whatever they come in with probably won't appreciate the energy anyways, and they come in with Bronzong, so usually a pretty hard answer to the Rapidash. However, we've already got back-to-back Wild Charges. First one grabs a shield, as of course I could be running high horsepower, but the second one is going to deal big damage. Now come in with the Raichu. I'm definitely going to shield this. The opponent is going to go ahead and bait with a Psyshock. So now unfortunately can't quite commit to a full farm down, but going to fire off a Trailblaze. Again, Trailblaze gets the boost. They're now going to come back in with the Altaria, and since we're boosted, Psyshock is going to deal respectable damage here. Psyshock is going to put them into 1 Volt Switch farm down range. That is huge for me, and the opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Shadow Celio. So of course, I'm going for Trailblaze. I actually probably could have gone for the Psyshock there, as I would get to another one slightly sooner, but either way, it doesn't really make a difference. We boost up our attack stat, we can fire off the Psyshock, and Psyshock is going to be more than enough damage to get the KO up against this Shadow Celio. So I believe the opponent has just conceded and quit the app there, but either way, GG's to that trainer. So, going into next battle, we see Dodrio into Dugong. So, of course, not a great lead matchup for me. Going to be safe swapping into Rapidash, and unfortunately met with an Alola Marowak. So, here, I'm going to full send the Wild Charge. Wild Charge is going to grab a shield. Once again, the threat of a potential high horsepower ends up grabbing a shield. They fire off the Flame Wheel there. That's fine with me. I'm going to come back in with the Dodrio. Of course, they're on Hex, so I am resisting the fast move damage. Honestly, this Flame Wheel is going to do quite a lot of damage here. It gets us very low. They swap back into the Dugong. So now I come in with the Raichu. I'm going to shield this. Lightly, they do bait, and they go for an Icy Wind. But now we can overfarm, go for a Trailblaze. This still actually won't quite get the KO, and they should be one away from the next charge move, meaning unless they get damage registration error, I actually get the full farm down, and that's actually probably slightly better for me. Now here we farm up to back-to-back Psyshocks. First one coming through, going to grab the final shield. Psyshock number 2 is going to deal decent damage here, as we are now back to our normal attack stat, but the opponent predicting a swap there. Swaps, they catch onto a Charizard in the bag, but it's a non-shadow, and we just barely miss out on reaching the charge move, and we barely miss out on getting that farm down as well, and we put ourselves into 1 HP, and of course a single Hex gets the KO, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG's opponent there into the next battle. Can see a Rufflet in the lead. So this is actually a pretty good matchup for me. Of course, the opponent does have access to Rock Tomb. However, I am going to outpace them. And these Pecks and Drill Pecks, even with a debuff, they still add up. I will still be able to get the KO here if I fire off a Drill Peck, even debuffed. And Drill Peck, not going to be shielded. We get the KO. They come in with a second Flying type and Normal type Pokemon. They now come in with a Fire Spin, Shadow Alola Marowak. But we full send the Wild Charge, dealing big damage. We are once again going to full send another Wild Charge. Wild Charge, not respected, and the opponent comes back in with the Trumbeak, but unfortunately for them, we can come in with the Alolan Raichu. Now, of course, the opponent going to be on Rock Blast. Rock Blast actually does slightly less damage than a resisted Drill Peck, I believe, so it doesn't really matter here. Neither would get the KO. We can get the Volt Switch farm down, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle. We're going to see Turtonator in the lead. So, they're on Ember, so I am going to definitely no-shield this. This is just going to be a Brutal Swing. Brutal Swing does okay-ish damage there, but not the worst. So, now we're going to go for a Drill Peck. Drill Peck probably grabs a shield here, and it does exactly that. Now, they throw straight away, so I am actually going to shield this, as I can go straight for another Drill Peck. And if they shield this, I'm going to swap into my Rapidash. So, Drill Peck is not going to be shielded. We swap into Rapidash. Again, just going to be a Brutal Swing. Very unlikely that they're running like Overheat or anything like that, so definitely don't need to respect it. They're going to come in with a Togekiss, and I'm full sending the Wild Charge. Wild Charge, not respected. It gets the one shot. Their final Pokemon going to be Altaria, and once again going straight for Wild Charge, dealing big damage in the process. And at this point, I'm going to bank a Body Slam. I'm going to have to put them into range where a Body Slam would KO, and so the opponent just concedes the match. So, GG's opponent there into the next battle. I'm going to see Glalie in the leads. Of course, not a great lead matchup for me. Going to be safe swapping into my Rapidash. And I am actually going to no-shield this. It is just a Avalanche, which doesn't deal... I mean, it does do quite a lot of damage there, but by waiting one turn, I wait for Confusion to register, which means now I can farm up and throw back-to-back Wild Charges. Wild Charge number 2 gets the KO there. We flip switch advantage. However, I don't know if that really does help me because we've got Alolan Raichu, not exactly the hardest answer to a Glalie. So they fire off the Avalanche bait. Honestly, not really a bait because it just does so much damage that I would need to shield anyways. But either way, we fire off a Side Shock. That barely doesn't KO. Leaves them with 1 HP and a Dream. And I remember this match now. This, honestly... this was such an annoying match here. But anyways, they fire off the Dynamic Punch. I'm correctly shielding that up. We're now going to go ahead and fire off a Drill Peck. I should reach another Drill Peck before they get to the next Dynamic Punch. This should grab the final shield. And then we should be looking fine here. I believe Raichu already has a charge we've loaded. So as long as the opponent doesn't make a catch, I should win this game. Dynamic Punch is full sent. But here, I'm waiting for the opponent to swap out and transfer the damage. I don't throw, and as a result, they get the KO there. And unfortunately, I do lose that game. But my thinking was, if I wait like a few turns there to make sure the opponent doesn't try and make a catch, they'll actually get to a charge move on the Glalie and throw it into my Raichu. So I couldn't really afford to pause. I basically just had to either throw and just assume they wouldn't catch there, or do what I did, which was obviously not the right play. But either way, GG's to that trainer. Into the next battle, I don't even know if they led with a Turtonator, or if they safe swapped into it, or if I safe swapped out of my lead into my Rapidash. But either way, we're firing off Body Slams into this Turtonator. The opponent fires off a Brutal Swing. That's fine with me. We can come in with the Dodrio, and I am just going to no-shield this first charge move. Honestly, I don't have a clue how much energy they've got here when watching it back, but obviously, at the time, I probably knew. But either way, we're going to go ahead, fire off the Drill Peck, and I might actually just no-shield this, hoping 2 shields Raichu can win me this game. They swap into a Rangaroo, and they are going to fire the charge move. So here, I'm definitely going to shield this. Obviously, this is where Wild Charge would be more useful for me because I don't think Trailblaze KOs from this range, so I actually choose not to throw it at all. Instead, going to look to overfarm massively, farming to 100 energy here before throwing. I did also consider undercharging this, but I didn't want to mess it up and undercharge too much. So here, we're boosted. They come in with the Gyarados, and the opponent swaps back into Turtonator. That is literally perfect for me because now we can fire off the Side Shock. We can fire off Side Shock number 2, and of course, from this range, with the insane damage we've already dealt with the Volt Switches, it gets the KO up against the Gyarados, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see Shadow Dusknoir in the lead once again, and this time actually staying in initially, then swapping into Altaria. So I'm going to bank a Brave Bird and then swap into my Rapidash. I don't need to shield any Charge Move here. Sky Attack does decent damage, but they can never Dragon Breath farm me down, even after I go for back-to-back Wild Charges. First one, going to grab a shield, and this point I'm going to wait until I put them into range where a Wild Charge will KO, which coincidentally happens to be when I get to back-to-back Wild Charges. So at this point, I'm actually just going to shield anyways. If they come back in with that Dusknoir, I'm going for Wild Charge regardless, but they stay in with the Altaria. Wild Charge will be connecting. It gets the KO there. They come in, they farm down with the Dusknoir, but we've already got the Brave Bird loaded, so we throw it straight away. Brave Bird easily gonna get the KO there. Their final Pokemon gonna be Oranguru, which could be slightly awkward for me if Brutal Swing puts me into perfect farm down range. However, I'm just gonna shield the first one, and what this is gonna do is it's gonna force the opponent to throw another charge move. If I let the first move go through, there is the potential that they can commit to a full farm down, whereas you can see right now, Brutal Swing does get me incredibly low, but because they had to throw two charge moves there, we get to a second Trailblaze, and Trailblaze gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. You can see Turtonator in the lead once again, and this time they're on Incinerate. So, at this point, I am gonna, well, this is gonna be a Brutal Swing straight away, so I don't have to shield this. I'm gonna let this move go through. I'm gonna see a Celio coming in, so I'm gonna full send a Brave Bird here. This is a mistake because unfortunately it doesn't quite put them into farm down range. Now this is just going to be a body slam, but I'm going to shield anyways. What I don't really want to do is put myself into range where a couple of Incinerates can fully farm me down, because Turtonator is going to be quite deadly in that case. So here we fire off the Side Shock, and we are going to see the Turtonator is going to throw straight away, but they have to throw immediately, otherwise we get to another charge move, and as a result that does allow me to get another Volt Switch through. Here we're going to go for another Side Shock. Side Shock gonna be shielded, and I'm gonna swap into my Rapidash, looking to either catch a charge move or just force them to throw. And here I make a huge mistake. What I was hoping to do was put them into range where I could Volt Switch farm them down by throwing a Wild Charge, but actually that doesn't really put them into farm down range, and now of course they can just settle for the Avalanche, which means we come back in with the Raichu, but I'm going to be forced to throw a charge move pretty much immediately here. Cannot farm them down, cannot farm to back-to-back charge moves. Side Shock gets the KO, we swap out, we try to make the catch, but either way, Turtonator probably at like back-to-back charge moves at this point in time. Brutal Swing gets the KO there, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But of course, with the Rapidash, if we went for Body Slam first and then went for Wild Charge, I feel like we probably could have won that. But either way, GG to the trainer into next battle. We're going to see a Shadow Gyarados in the lead. So we say swap into Rapidash, and again, they're giving me such a huge energy advantage. We can farm up to back-to-back Wild Charges. I assume they farm me down this time around, so I do opt for the extra Fairy Wind. And of course, Wild Charge is going to connect. It does big damage. It puts them into range where, well, we can't quite farm them down with the Dodrio. And of course, I know Raichu is going to be pretty good here resisting the confusion damage, but I'm going to shield this. If they swap back into Gyarados, I'm swapping out straight away into the Raichu. I will shield anyways because Octail is going to do quite a lot of damage, but now we can go for a full Volt Switch farm down, and let's see what they've got in the back. The opponent's final Pokemon is going to be a Turtonator, which is not ideal for me, as of course Ember's gonna allow them to actually outpace me before I get to back-to-back Side Shocks. And Brutal Swing actually KOs from that range. That is not great, but they swap back into Oranguru and they get fully farmed down. Now here, I wasn't sure if Brave Bird would quite get the one shot, so instead I'm gonna go for back-to-back Drill Pecks. I also don't know if that does more damage than a Brave Bird. You can feel free to let me know in the comment section. Maybe it does the same damage, but either way, we get the KO there with the back-to-back Drill Pecks, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up in there into the next battle. I'm going to see the opponent's going to say swap into Dugong, so we can come in with our Raichu straight away. I don't go for the Trailblaze immediately because I would be throwing on alignment, and because it's not Wild Charge, it would not get the KO. But now, unfortunately, I throw at awkward timing. Trailblaze is going to get the KO there, and I'm only going to reach one charge move, so I am boosted. I should grab a shield back from the opponent. However, they do get quite an aggressive farm down. So we're now going to come back in with the Dodrio, and I will be shielding the first charge move. The opponent is going to go ahead and full send a Dark Pulse there, which is quite surprising, but quite interesting as well. Either way, we are going to go for a Brave Bird, grabbing the final shield. We try to swap and catch an Avalanche. Does not work out for me. The opponent is going to go ahead and go for an Avalanche there, which was also surprising. And then even more surprising, I didn't throw a charge move. What am I doing here? Well, we come back in with the Dodrio. I'm waiting for the opponent to swap back. They do eventually swap. They make the catch here. But if I go for an undercharge... Oh, we undercharged too much there. Of course, you can see we do actually get to back-to-back drill picks. We had a chance to win that game, but unfortunately, we don't end up winning there. So GG's to that trainer. I made quite a few mistakes in that game, but into the next battle, I'm going to see Alolan Raichu in the lead. So once again, going to be safe swapping into that Rapidash and going straight for Body Slam. Body Slam going to be connecting this time around. I'm definitely going to shield this as a Wild Charge would get the KO. The opponent goes ahead and baits with a Trailblaze, but that's fine with me. Now here, I'm going to fast a Wild Charge. I should still live the Gust damage. So if they commit to a farm down, I'm going to get to yet another Wild Charge. Wild Charge, not respected. It gets the one-shot. They come in with the Raichu. They farm me down. But presumably, they've got a double flying backline. So now I'm just going to shield this. Go for a full Volt Switch farm down. And let's see. They're going to have a Fearow in the back. We're at back-to-back Side Shocks. So just going to throw them straight away. First one, going to grab the final shield. Side Shock number 2 is going to deal big damage in this matchup. Puts them on 1 HP and a Dream. They can actually reach a Drill Peck. It doesn't really matter. Sorry, Drill Run. That gets the one shot. But we just Peck farm them down with Dodrio. And I'm able to take that game. So, GG's top on there, into the next battle, Shadow Gyarados in the lead. We tried to swap out straight away, doesn't go through for some reason, but they come in with a Galarian. So here, once again, we're going to go straight for Wild Charge. They don't have huge fast move pressure, so I don't mind full sending, because now I can just use my shields, and if the opponent underestimates the energy generation on the Rapidash, we can actually reach back-to-back Body Slams if they don't throw immediately. So, Body Slam coming through, grabs the shield, and they do go for the extra rollout, meaning I can get to a second Body Slam. Body Slam grabs the final shield, and at this point I'm happy to let Rapidash go down. Avalanche gets the KO there, but we can come in with the Dodrio, get the full farm down. Presumably they come back in with the Gyarados, so I'm going straight for a Drill Peck. Drill Peck is going to deal big damage, but it doesn't quite get the one shot here. And just in case they do wall the Raichu in the back, I'm gonna shield. Their final Pokemon, gonna be Shadow Annihilate. So of course, we can just stay in here, fire off the Drill Peck. Drill Peck gets that one shot. And I'm able to take that game. So, GG top on there, into the next battle. You can see Oranguru in the lead. So, going to go and swap into our Rapidash. They actually swap into Dugong at pretty much the same time there. So, we're going to go ahead and full send a Wild Charge. And again, they don't respect the damage there, assuming I'm not going to go ahead and debuff myself. But, you can see Icy Wind doesn't KO. I thought, well, I'm debuffed. Icy Wind KOs. We can come in with the Raichu, farm them down. But because they get that one extra Volt Switch through, they barely hang on as well. And they reach a charge move. It's probably a bait, but I end up shielding anyways, and that completely changes how this matchup plays out there. Of course, if I realized that was not going to KO, I probably would have shielded my Rapidash there and looked to either fight for switch advantage or grab a shield back from the opponent. But now we don't have the alignment we want. We also don't even have that shield advantage that we want. But we can go for a Brave Bird. We can fire off the Drill Peck here. We do finally grab a shield from the opponent. We've got a lot of energy on the Raichu. So here we're going to full send a Trailblaze. Trailblaze is going to grab a shield from the opponent. I'm of course going to have to shield this. The opponent does full send the payback. They swap back into the Oranguru. But the opponent is going to go for a Trailblaze here. That is very interesting. But unfortunately for me, it still doesn't help me out as I go for a Trailblaze. Trailblaze, still not enough damage to get the KO there. So of course the opponent can fire off a Brutal Swing, taking out the Raichu. And unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG top on there into the final battle of this video, leading into a Shadow Dusknoir. The opponent's going to safe swap into Togekiss, and the opponent is going to fire off the charge move. The opponent is going to go ahead and go for an Aura Sphere here, which is resisted damage. If they're on Aura Sphere and Side Shock, both are resisted, and Aura Sphere is a slightly better move there, so it does make sense. They come back in with that Shadow Dusknoir. We're going to go straight for a Side Shock. Side Shock going to grab a shield back from the opponent, and they are able to farm me down. Their final Pokemon going to be a Dugong, but once again, we are going straight for that Wild Charge. So far, every single one has let it go through. And again, it's the exact same result. And this time we're going to do the same thing here, which is going to not KO me again. So maybe I should have shielded once again. But either way, we haven't quite put them into range where we can fire them down. And they're not at 1 HP either. So they can shield this, but they can now permanently debuff my attack stat. However, Dodrio just doesn't really care now as we are running Brave Bird. Of course, we can just full send it here. I am going to shield this. I don't know if they've got back-to-back charge moves. I don't think so, but it doesn't really matter. Even debuffed up against a Shadow Dust Noir, Brave Bird gets the KO. We can just go for that Peck Farm down up against the Dugong, and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. Now, if you want to take your support to the next level, you can become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments of every video. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has become a channel member already. Your support is greatly appreciated. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.